Clubhouse.
Welcome to Book Club Meets Movie Night, where you can join the club and see the show. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing Sarah Pinborough's 2017 novel, Behind Her Eyes. This supernatural psychological thriller was first published by HarperCollins on January 23rd, 2017.
Just a reminder on this podcast format, we're going to be doing this mini-series style. Every book we cover, we'll take an episode or two on book discussion, and then there'll be one more final episode where we discuss the movie or the TV adaptation of the book, and we discuss like things that changed, things that we liked, things we might not have liked. Definitely stick around for the multiple episode for each book and movie.
We did the Thursday Murder Club for September. Behind Her Eyes is our October one, so definitely chime in, let us know what you guys think. We already have our first review in, which is great. We'll read at the end of this episode, so thank you guys for already listening. Any of you Gilded Age people or Yellowstone people out there that listen to Caroline and myself, we welcome you and hope you look forward to talking about books and movies and TV shows with us. It's a little bit of everything. It's a smorgasbord for everyone.
It truly is.
So the second episode in this Behind Her series, miniseries, is going to cover the 2021 Netflix 6-episode adaptation starring Simona Brown, Tom Bateman, Eve Hewson, and Robert Aramayo. But for this episode, we're going to be talking about the book.
For Behind Her Eyes, you can get this book in printed format. I read the paperback. Mike, I believe you read the ebook format.
I did.
You can also catch it over on Audible, which I am a big fan of. I'm a very busy mom. I have 3 special needs kids. And so it's super helpful for me to be able to fold laundry, do things with my hands when I'm very busy, and put on my headphones and listen to some Audible. Love it.
I think this book actually has 4 different voices credited in the audiobook. I know a lot of audiobooks, it's just one person reading and does kind of all the different voices, but this one seems like they cast maybe actor or voice actors to read the parts. So that's an an interesting take on it. Kind of an audio play version of the book versus if you're not digging the Netflix show.
So we assume that you guys have read the book. You guys are going to hear some spoilers, obviously. So please, if you haven't read the book or if you're not finished yet, we do not want to ruin this twist ending because it is quite a twist. So please turn us off if you haven't finished your book. Go read and come on back.
Here is a quick synopsis of what the book is about. This is pulled from Wikipedia. Louise Barnsley is a single mother who works in an unfulfilling role as a secretary. On a particular night, she engages in a conversation with David Martin, a man she met at a bar. When it is time for the two to depart, David gives Louise an unexpected kiss. Later, she realizes David is her new boss at her workplace. When Louise realizes the truth that David is married, he confesses to her that it was a mistake, though in spite of feeling guilty, he maintains his feelings for Louise. Louise is conflicted about the situation, which is only further complicated by her encounter with David's wife Adele, who, as a new resident in town, is interested in forming a friendly connection with Louise. Soon after, Louise is caught in the middle of a twisted circumstance that makes her question the sinister conspiracy behind their marital relationship. Dun dun dun.
Super dun dun dun. Having finished the book, that has very little to do with what this book at its heart is really about. Yes, that is like sort of the glossy, like what you see on the surface, but holy crap, what was going on deeper down was so much more insane. And that makes it sound way too like rom-com-y or just like, oh, there's a meet cute or something. No, dude, y'all, this is a crazy book. Talk to me, Mike. I mean, this whole thing, I came into it trying to tell you, maybe let's do mysteries because that'd be fun to try to figure out. What on this book? What did you think?
Okay, so I did not have astral projection or body or soul swapping on my bingo card for this podcast or for this book. I didn't know anything about this book. I had
neither.
Until you proposed it because there was a Netflix show.
I'm going to tell you exactly why we're doing this because people know Elise Myers. And Elise Myers is on TikTok and Reels and all kinds of stuff. And she's a great, influencer on social media. She did this quick little TikTok where she is like gasping at the book and like running away from the book and running back to the book and then running away from the book. And she was just like, the ending of Behind Her Eyes is like unbelievable. And that was it. Like, I literally was like, everyone get your shoes on. We're going to Barnes and Noble. Like, I need to go buy this book because if someone has that big of a response to it, like, I want to know what's going on. And I managed to keep myself spoiler free. I knew absolutely nothing about this book.
I was ahead of you in the reading department. So when you would check in with a theory, I would be like, yes, yes, you're asking good questions. Yes, that is, yeah, there are things to be concerned about there for sure.
I am the type of reader where like, I'm kind of like this about everything, you guys. I'm a big procrastinator. And so like, I'll dread doing something. And then once I start doing it, I freaking love it. And I'm like voraciously doing this task, freaking loving it, wanting to do it. So here's the thing. I kept taking pictures for Mike of how I kept moving the book closer to myself. Like it was on my nightstand and I like moved it to the coffee table.
As if you were hovering it out of body style.
Oh my
near
God,
the
maybe.
book.
Yeah, it was like astroplaning at me.
That's it. Were you drooling in a chair somewhere as you were standing over the book?
I did have a tooth removed, so I did kind of drool.
There was some drooling, that's true.
Yeah. So you guys, I had no idea what this book was going to be about, like none at all. And I very much did not expect a supernatural twist whatsoever. Like I was looking at this as pure relationship, pure character driven. And then once this got so much more twisted, I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. How do I feel about all of this?
I think that synopsis does a good job of describing like 2/3 of the book.
But not the meat of the book. Not what it's
at the
really
end,
about.
when the takeaway from it is not applicable at all. No, because we set this podcast up to do thriller, to do murder mysteries, kind of as murder mysteries and kind of whodunits and an edge of your seat book. Did this scratch the itch for you that way? This is the first question I like to ask because it's why we're doing the podcast and something to talk about is, oh my God, could you believe it?
It doesn't in terms of murder mystery. I think it does in terms of just plain old mystery. Because there is enough in the Adele portions where she drops pretty early on that kind of like, you know, like my plan's in place or like things are going my way or whatever. And so there is something there that you're kind of like piqued. Like you're like, well, what is she talking about? What is this more that she's doing? Again, what she's doing is a part of the plot, but it's like not even to the meat of the plot, really. This story is like levels, man. It has like different levels, and you can take it at a more shallow level, but you could go weirdly deep with this one.
I think the book works for me on several levels. I think ultimately the ending doesn't work for me. This is a book that I want to show to people, have them read through like 3/4 of the book, and then with, say, 4 or 5 chapters left to go, stop them and be like, okay, the table is set for you. What do you think happened here? No one would ever guess what actually happened in this. And I think ultimately that's my problem with the book. You can't get to the ending.
Yeah, it's not figure-outable.
You can figure out a lot.
But not
the final 2 twists. The clues aren't there. You have no idea that Rob is into David. They could have.
And by into, you better say that a little bit differently because into means two things in this book.
Sexually, not soul-like.
Romantically, romantically, he's interested in David.
Yes, well, what he thinks is romance, but obsessively into David, but not actually into David. Like as if he was into Louise and Adele, but they don't breadcrumb that. And there are parts when you go back and look, they could have. They give it to you in the final chapter. Looking back on pages that we already covered, that's cheating just for the twist, and I don't like that. Give me the breadcrumbs, and there were some good breadcrumbs here. You and I talked about a little bit, like there's like how she's itchy at one point, and I said to you, I was like, right there, I knew she was trying heroin. I knew she was playing around with heroin,
right? And I had picked up on the like weirdness between the toes. Like I was like, okay, what is she doing with that? Like, why is she irritated between her toes? Now, yeah, I didn't guess drug addict at that point, or drug user at any way. I didn't guess that, but I did pick up on it. So I think that there were clues. Now here's why though, Mike. I think that why we're feeling a little bit like, how could we get to this ending? It's because I took it as a psychological thriller. I never saw the word supernatural. Now, if I had seen the word supernatural applied to this, I might have paid more attention to the dream book and more attention to the night terror portions. Now, I mean, of course, it was a massive coincidence to have these people have the same issues, right? I mean, you essentially have 3 characters who all have dream issues and night terrors and sleepwalking in this book. I mean, that's a lot. So, I mean, it's a little silly, really, when you think about it looking back.
Adele actually says to Louise, or Rob Dell says to Louise at one point, do you know how rare we are? Well, I know how rare you are. There's 4 characters in this book, and 3 of them have night terrors.
But that should have been a clue in that the night terrors were going to be key. And that's the thing. We weren't thinking that way. And that does make a good mystery, that we weren't thinking that way. And yet that was a very plain clue looking back now, that if you have 3 out of 4 characters who have this ailment may very well come into play. I fault myself for that. I should have looked back and thought about that. I didn't allow my brain to expand far enough to include a supernatural element. Had I done that, I don't know that I still could. I don't think I'm still getting where we're supposed to get, but at least it would have been somewhat more on my radar that the dreams came into play more. But I did not know.
I didn't have a problem with the astral projection part even.
Which explain for people who don't know what astral projection is, like define that.
You leave your physical body behind and you project a non-corporeal form of yourself out of your body. It's
like an out-of-body experience.
It's a literal out-of-body experience where you're conscious and you're sentient and you're doing things, but you can't interact with things. It's kind of as if your soul goes and takes a walk out of your body. The meat of your body stays wherever it is, so you better put it in a place where it's safe. Again, not an uncommon trope in astral projection stories. You got to make sure the physical body is safe so you have somewhere to return to, but it allows you essentially to roam in a non-corporeal form. I was fine with that because I've come across it in enough sci-fi books and TV shows. I understood the concept and I was okay with that. And I actually thought that was an interesting twist on what was a good psychological thriller, reverse fatal attraction-esque kind of story they were setting up, because it did answer questions that were bothering us, and I imagine bothers all readers. How is Adele getting all of this information? How does she know what David is doing? How does she know what Louise is doing? It got there. For me, it was the final body swapping part of it that I couldn't buy into because it was just too convenient. Louise makes some horrible choices consistently in this novel, which drove me crazy. But the last twist of Rob Dell relying on her, leaving her body, going into her room, and then being tempted enough to go enter Adele's unconscious form to awake her and move her down the stairs, controlling, which is what she does, and which then allows Rob's soul to then enter Louise's body, where he then takes a permanent residence. There's just even saying it out loud is too much. It is too much, and it was unnecessary.
But is it too much, but it's too much maybe for a regular psychological thriller. But if you add the fact that it would be considered under a supernatural genre, I don't know. I mean, is it, I have friends who read books about witches and books about fantasy lands and books about all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. Is it that crazy? Is it that out of line? I don't know. My mind was not open enough to this.
I guess it felt unearned for me to introduce it and then execute it all at the end.
Okay, let's get into the questions, because I think it's going to help us better go through the book a little more linearly and get into it.
This is the question that I want us to be able to answer at the end of this. Did the supernatural twist, was it necessary, or did it ultimately take away from an otherwise good enough relationship psychological thriller whodunit mystery? Because I think if we answer that, I think we kind of answer, was the book worth the time or not?
So I'm going to ask the first question. And you guys, we're getting these from readinggroupgold.com. You might also find questions in the back of your paperback or maybe at the end of your ebook. When Louise's life gets entwined with her lover, David, and her friend, Adele, she finds it difficult to give either of them up. Could you identify with her indecision and longing about either or both of them?
We're in our 40s, and it is tough to make new friends in your 40s.
It sure is.
I am a single dad, so I could relate to a lot of Louise here, a lot of, where you circle your life around your kid. Obviously, Tom is a bit older than Adam in the story. And the idea and the excitement of meeting someone new, both as a lover and then on the Adele side as a friend, and one that you feel like you can help, and which really obviously scratches Louise's itch to be maternal and to be nurturing, which she's missing when Adam is away in France. All of that rang true to me. I think I would have been able to give both of them up as soon as Adam was back in town, though, because for me, it would have been too difficult and too dangerous, honestly, by that point. By the time Adam's back from France and Ian and the new wife are back,
things are at like an 8.
It's too much. It's too dangerous. And now I'm putting him in the crosshairs. So for me, the necessity of the situation would, I think I would have been able to. How about you? Did you see aspects in here and been like, I could fall into the traps Louise falls into?
Well, okay. So I think that they did a good job of creating a scenario with David and Louise where, she didn't know that he was going to be her new employer the next day. They started off from a very innocent place. She did, at least, because we're mainly talking about her indecision, right? She just met David in a bar. And even though the Wikipedia thing said they shared a kiss, it sounded to me like much more than that. Like it was way more hot and heavy because they got to the point where it was like maybe they were going to sleep together. So they got to that point, not just like one little kiss. And so it was right kind of at the precipice of like maybe they're gonna, maybe they're not. So I kind of understand because you have to understand that they made it further in that evening. Once she figured out that it was her boss, to me, no, it's done. Like, no, I could not really understand at that point why she continued to go for this situation. Like, to me, it seemed like a no-brainer. Like, I actually kind of gasped when I read the couple lines that it was like basically she did go, like it was like we couldn't wonder what it was going to be like anymore or something like that. Some line like that was like wait you guys had sex, like what'd you do that for? It was only like a day or two later. Like, geez Louise, that was like way too fast.
Is it a bad look for Louise that
I think so? Yeah, I think it is.
He shows up drunk and she's like, all right, I can't fight this now.
1,000,000,000%. Yes, I think it's like totally a bad look for her and for David too, obviously.
I think it is an objectively bad look for David. There's no defending David's actions in this book. I think all three of these characters are pretty indefensible. I think Louise is the most sympathetic, but I think David is very pathetic. I think he is kind of a victim of choices that he has continued to make and hide behind. But you have
to slow down a little bit because you've got to go with what the book tells us. And let's just put this out there right now because it's important at the top of the story to remember what every character really is. This book was set up by switching between Louise and Adele in the chapters. I think that was done by design, most especially putting the name Adele at the top of every other chapter. I think that actually visually solidified that the person who's talking to you right now is Adele. And I think that was a very clever visual trick to have you never question whether it's really Adele. And that I give kudos to the publisher or whoever, or the editor, or if the author did it, awesome, to keep putting her name at the top of the page, because that allowed you, even at the end, it allowed you to think, like in my brain, it's like you were still talking about Adele and Louise. No, we're not. We're talking about Louise and Rob, or we're talking about David and Rob. Adele never was in this, guys. Adele was only in the 18-year-old version of her. That is it. After that, when you're saying David's pathetic, hold up. David's married to a man when he thinks he's married to a woman, and it's a person that he thought he grew up with, and now this person is this crazy person who he doesn't even seem to know because it's not her. You got to put yourself a little bit more into David's shoes and think about the complete mindfuck that this must be for him to be living in this life when Rob is inside his wife's body.
But why does David stay, though? David stays because David is doing a classic savior knight on white horse.
That's not why.
Scenario. Yes,
that's not why. No, it isn't.
Okay, why is he saying?
Rob is blackmailing him with the watch in the well.
Yes. But at what cost, though?
You guys need to remember, Rob's body is inside the well, and David's watch is inside the well. So Adele, with Rob inside Adele's body, which Mike was affectionately calling Rob Dell, which we can call that person that. So Rob Dell is spending their life blackmailing David, and David has the control of the money. So there's like two aspects of this life. And he, in theory, loves the young girl that he grew up with on the farm and thinks this is essentially an orphan who has no one, who has lost her way and is confused in the world and is acting out and doing all these weird things. And so feels like her protector in some way. So that's the savior portion I'll agree with. But I think the blackmail portion, I mean, it's like him finally deciding that he's willing to take jail time or even the death penalty over staying in this life.
I think, let me amend my statement. I think the beginning part of it is not about blackmail. I think it is he thinks he can save her and protect her, and that's why he stays initially. And only when he begins to threaten to leave does Rob Dell begin to use blackmail, then the threat of blackmail as a reason. But he stays initially because he thinks he can be the one to protect her and save her. He is a psychiatrist. I mean, we see in his notes, he's got, based on what he knows, because he doesn't know about the body swapping or soul swapping, he's coming up with concrete reasons that she should probably be committed. And certainly, if not in jail, at least probably in some kind of institution, for mental health problems. But he doesn't. He buries cats. He tells women to stay away, and he moves, and he hides. How many cats need to die in this book?
Yeah, but you're talking about a cat versus are you willing to go to prison?
At some point,
I would not be willing to go to prison for a murder I did not commit.
I mean, he's a smart guy. Why didn't he think through that more? Why didn't he go get a giant ladder and go down the well and go get the watch? I mean, there are things that could have been done in 10 plus years of this to smooth it over. He could have filled in the well. He could have just poured concrete down the well, would have covered up whatever Rob Dell's body
But Rob Dell could tell and they would dig it up. With Rob Dell alive, you're fixing the evidence with the idea that Rob Dell is never going to tell. The blackmail is telling, not just that the evidence exists there, but according to the way that they describe the way that Adele looks, she looks like Angelina Jolie. If she shows up in the police department and says, this is what happened, my jealous boyfriend came to the house and killed my sickly, drug-addled friend, and this is what happened, and he threw him in the well, and I know that there's proof because his watch is even down there. That is a very tough case to fight against. You've got what's considered an eyewitness. You've got a body. You've got motive. Like, that's a tough case.
I think that sounds good on paper. One, again, he could have taken steps to go get the watch. Two, the Westlands medical staff would have been able to testify on his behalf that she clung to that watch around her wrist like a whoopee. And that she was inseparable from it. And also, before it all fell apart and his drinking took over, we get the impression that he was a very reputable psychiatrist. I mean, he was clearly working at what they call a middle class into like the psychiatry's office, but clearly had the reputation and the skills to be working at one of the top end.
Well, they sounded like it was actually pretty top end, because remember he said he was going to do like some outreach, and Louise was like really taken aback because she's like, well, we don't like give like discount rates or anything.
In the Rob Dell telling of it, she talks about how she, I think, was it Harley, like he
Louise
wasn't achieving,
about it too.
He wasn't achieving as high as Rob Dell thought he could go. She's the one who had a history of mental illness and commitment. She's the one who was very always wearing the watch.
Well, you're skipping over the most obvious defense, which is he had the burns on his arms, which is why he wasn't wearing his watch. And so it would be very easy to say, I clearly have these these burns on my arms, I wasn't wearing my watch during the time
she was in possession
I was visiting. Hopefully, people around him in his life, like his doctors and whatnot, could say, oh, yes, we advised him not to wear jewelry or anything on his skin while we were dealing with this healing, whatever. That would be very logical. Let's jump back to our question because we have so much more going on in this one, and I want to make sure that we're hitting all of our details here. So, what do you think about the relationship between Louise and Adele, and like why didn't she walk away from that? That was even less of a chemistry, really, I think, than her and David.
I think it was because she was missing Adam. I think she wanted someone that she thought she could take care of and make better. There's a line there at the end where Rob Dell is like, "You always saw me just for pity and as charity." And I think that's right. I think Louise wanted to feel like she was doing something or taking care of someone. The beauty of Adele, the way they describe it, people are naturally drawn to that. You and I've had this discussion off mic on different topics, how, men and women flock to beautiful people just out of the course of human nature. But then there was the kind of, it seemed like wounded bird aspect. That was kind of how Adele, I think, was front facing, was very wounded bird.
Oh, yes.
And that, I think that's catnip to someone like Louise. I think at the end of the day, Adele was a master of understanding people. When she says, like, I think I'm better at understanding people than my psychiatrist husband, I think she's right. She pegs both of them, Louise and David, perfectly on what makes them tick and what things they're going to do. Yes, she sets a lot of things in motion, but she really counts on both of them acting in a very specific way, which pans out over and over again, which I think is a testament to her understanding how she is perceived and using that for all of its worth to put her plan into motion.
I also feel very much that Adele was so manipulative, Rob Dell, if you will, was so manipulative in the way that they would ask for help, the way that they would offering up the gym pass, always being smothery, that type of thing. And to your point about Louise being like really wanting a project kind of thing to keep her mind off of Adam, but also being a secretary, she had like sort of that nurturing, like I make sure the coffee's on right at time. I make sure that this is right on time. Those types of things.
Very nurturing.
Yeah, you feel like her personality would be to see Adele and want to be warm to her.
Also, and I don't think we can underestimate this, there is a assuaging of her guilt.
Yeah.
I think she's trying to excise her guilt for what she feels for David and what she has physically done with David by being Adele's friend.
I agree wholeheartedly on that one. So our next question is, Adele, David, and Louise all keep secrets from each other. Whose secrets surprised you most?
This is a dumb
Anyone
question.
who doesn't sell Adele, I don't know what your problem is. Because, hello, there's a man inside of her. She's soul swapped, y'all. I mean, what the friggity frick? So, yeah, that secret surprised me most of all by far. I don't even know what Louise's secrets really were. Yeah, she was having an affair, but that really wasn't a secret from us. I don't know. What other secrets really was Louise keeping?
I think it's David that's actually having the affair. I don't think Louise.
Oh, yes. Facts.
Louise
okay.
is not actually having the affair, but
it's not both of them. Louise isn't having an affair.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I mean, I guess she's participating in an affair, I guess.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you on that one. So, yeah, Adele's the answer, right? People?
Obviously, Rob Dell. I think the presence of Rob Hoyle, 18-year-old braces guy inside her body, yes, I think that makes her secret the trumping card.
Freaking crazy. Okay, what did you think of Adele and Rob's friendship? When did you look back at the Adele past chapters? How different does she seem from Adele in the present? Now, did you do this? Did you go back and read the parts where she was in the institution with Rob after you knew that the soul swap had happened?
Did I go back and reread them? No, but I thought about it, though. I reflected on it a little bit. I think there's a lot of similarity, actually. I think Adele in the present is much colder and more calculating than the Adele who is becoming friends with Rob in the past, based on those recollections. And also, as it turns out, every recollection is being told from Rob's point of view, either through what Louise is reading in the dream book, which is essentially Rob's journal from that period of time, or the narrative flashback, which we have to think is coming from Adele's point of view, but as it turns out, is really Rob's point of view.
Who are we seeing that from at that point?
Unless we're taking it as the author is giving some omniscient narration of what, someone standing above them, of what those flashback days were like, then I guess we could take it as fact. But otherwise, it's biased from the person thinking back on those flashbacks, which has to be Rob and Adele's body in the present.
So then I'm going to say, based on everything you just said, there's no way for us to give an accurate idea of who Adele was when she was 18 years old, because I believe we've only been told about her and that memory by Rob Dell, who would have been telling us this story.
I agree with you. So we don't really know. But even taking that into account, I think Adele then did seem more innocently in love, more naively, just blindly in love, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old is.
Part of the difference would have felt like the difference between being 18 and 28. She had gone through a difficult marriage for the last 10 years. That's going to change somebody. So it wasn't a tip-off at all that Adele was different when she was at the institution and she was naive and young and immature and all those things, like doing silly things and, smoking weed and all that kind of stuff. Like that all seemed juvenile and kiddish, but she was 18. That made sense. And so then it was like, when we see her being different as Rob Dell, I didn't take that to be, well, clearly her soul's different. It's like, no, she's just older and kind of bitter and kind of have been drugged through a shit marriage and all this stuff, Even
my point that Adele in the present seems to be a more cold, calculating version of the Adele we hear in the past. Even with that said, which I think is true, you do still see the Adele in the past again from the Rob's recollection of their time together. Adele is just setting up. She's like, Rob, just come stay at the house. And I don't even have to tell David. He'll be here. I'm going to blindside him and he's going to love you. And she's just still trying to force things together, even in the past. And then I think in a very innocent, naive, 18 carefree kind of way. But there is still a nudgnik aspect to it. I think on the question of Adele and Rob's friendship, I think it was codependent. They both were using each other to get by. I don't even want to say heal, but to make each other feel better. I think they are a very classic codependent relationship, which I think this book is a series of codependent relationships, though. I think that's what Louise becomes with Adele.
And with David.
I think all of the relationships in this book are pretty toxic, except for, honestly, maybe Louise and her ex.
Yeah, they actually seem to work together pretty well.
They've reached that stage of divorce where you just become like an acquaintance friend, which an acquaintance friend is very easy because there's not a lot of stakes. All the love is removed. So it's just very transactional, but it's not codependent. It's not toxic. It's just, I need this thing. Can you do this thing? I will do this thing and I will do this thing. And obviously Adam towards his mother, for as long as he has left on this earth based on the final couple sentences in the book, I think is a healthy child's love for his mother. Yeah, I think this book is rife with bad toxic relationships and codependent relationships.
But I don't think inaccurate relationship.
No.
I think that's why the supernatural twist is such a doozy, because I think that Sarah, the author, did a really good job of creating realistic interactions with people, realistic dialogue with people. And so I think when you're grounded in what you think is pretty decent reality, your brain doesn't search for supernatural answers to stuff. They're looking for real answers, like grounded answers. And let's get into one of the potential answers to what we thought was going on in the book. So number 4 says, Louise loves David, but she becomes increasingly worried about Adele's welfare in her marriage. As Louise starts to complete the jigsaw of their crazy marriage, what did you think was going on between Adele and David? Did you feel suspicious of David? Immediately, yes, of course. The slap in the face, the whole situation with the bruise, they never clarified whether it was the cabinet or maybe he did get mad, because he did have times when he got mad. Now, I know we believe that it was the cabinet because we believe now that David was not abusive. But during the whole thing, I definitely thought he was abusive.
I disagree. I think that Bruce storyline, David is shocked when he sees it on her face. Remember, she disappears at one night.
Yeah, but I've seen that in shows where men are shocked that they left a bruise.
It wasn't written that way. It was written, she went out, he didn't know where she was, she came home, she had a bruise. So I thought she actually had gone searching for Anthony, the patient, and he did something to her in exchange for drugs or something. Or I actually thought she went and intentionally got herself into some kind of fight so that she could use the bruise. As it turns out, it was not intentional, but she was out trying to seek drugs. I think she says, or Rob says at the end of the book, like under a bridge trying to score drugs. And, you know, she almost had her bag stolen, but she got the black eye in exchange. I never felt a red herring of David being abusive in the relationship. I think he was a bad husband. Yeah.
Wow. Good on you. I was all in. And all the controlling with the credit card and the phone, you thought, oh, this is normal.
Yeah, David seemed too weak for me to do all that.
But he did it. He did do it.
Physically abusive, though.
Oh, okay. But what did you think of the phone and the money and the control over all that? And she doesn't have a job. And
I thought she killed the cat. I thought she did something to the Marianne, whether it was an affair or it turned out it wasn't. It was actually just having a friendship.
Wait, that's way too far in the book. At the whole first half, there's no Marianne. What do you think?
There's
in the
mention of a
half?
woman. There's a mention of a woman in Blackheath, and there's the cat in the cat buried in the yard, which we're introduced to right away. Her parents being. I thought Adele was behind all of that.
Okay.
The tone, it was something about the voice given to her that made me just kind of suspicious of her. I think I'm also just naturally cynical of everyone. So I think I pegged David as an alcoholic cheater trying to deal with an unhappy marriage. I pegged Adele as someone who has done bad things that has trapped them both in this marriage.
Okay.
Without having the details, that was kind of my vibe on both of them.
So I definitely fell into the entire abuse storyline. I was like, yeah, this makes sense. I mean, whether or not he hit her, that was left vague for a good long time. But I mean, I think we kind of figured out that no, he didn't do it. But the credit card and the whole thing that was set up earlier on about how David was going to take over all the money and all that stuff, and how Rob had been counseling her early on, don't let David have control of all the money. All of those things. I mean, I definitely was suspicious of David. There was times when I was. Of course, as you go along and it's a story, right? This can't be just straight forward like that. So then you do start wondering about Adele and what is going on with Adele as it goes on, for sure, without a doubt.
I think the thing I felt most about David was I never thought abusive. It never struck me, but controlling. Obviously, with the phone calls and the credit card and the be there at certain times and I'm coming straight home and everyone, all movements being accounted for.
You don't think that is considered emotional or psychological abuse of another person?
I didn't know why. So it struck me more. It struck me more like he was trying to contain her than not let her out to see sunshine in an abusive way. More I think it struck me more because I was suspicious from her. It struck me more he was trying to keep her from the world for the world's
protect
sake.
The world from her.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, trying to protect the world from her versus trying to keep her from the world.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't take it that way. But here's the thing. I wasn't really alarmed. I was like, yeah, this seems right. This seems this is a lot of a relationship that we see in Big Little Lies and a lot of other storylines. So it was sort of it wasn't a big deal to me, which is sad probably because I've read too much of bad relationship books. But it was yeah, okay, this relationship seems real and seems realistic.
I think I need to read it. I think I want to go back and read part 1 again. To give that fresh take, because as I'm saying it out loud, I'm wondering if I'm blending.
I mean, I'm surprised that you weren't suspicious of him because they really did everything they could. I was really suspicious from her because we were getting her narration. So I think my feeling was everything we were learning about David via Louise or via Adele, which made me suspicious of the
of the narration, I think.
But it was never good in either storyline.
Right, but people aren't so black and white. So I think it made me suspicious of it, though. There's a reason. Even people who are, they have a reason for why they're doing it. And so it felt like an incomplete picture, which made me be suspect of the narrator.
Okay. All right. I'll go with that. Okay. So under the guise of friendship, Adele begins to shape Louise into who she wants her to be, helping her to get fit, stop smoking, quiet her night terrors. Through the book, did you feel like their friendship was real, even though both were clearly hiding things? I mean, no, I can't believe that their friendship was real because nobody was being their real selves. Louise was hiding an entire aspect of sleeping with David, and Adele was hiding everything. So, no, I don't think it was a real friendship.
Right. If you're boning her husband, she's not being a real good friend at any point of the story. Like, you have to, you can't let you have to take a step back. And again, this is the narration of it all. Like, you can't fall into the words. You have to take a step back and be like, what's the context of these words?
And plus, I really, really liked your take on why Adele was doing this stuff with Louise, because we were all looking at it as friendship, but I really like your take.
So, yeah, it turns out she was really just trying to prime the body that she knew she was going to be spending the rest of her life maybe in. So she wanted to get Louise fitter. She wanted to get her off of cigarettes. She wanted to get her strong and get her in the gym and working out, because she was looking at it like an investment in real estate. Like, she's trying to prime the land for when she's going to move into it, which is real fucked up.
It's
like,
way creepier to look at it like that.
It's way creepier, but actually, I do like it. I don't know if I like it enough to like the ending.
Now that you know the ending, what do you think of the book's title, Behind Her Eyes?
Oh, I think it's great. There's two times, I think, where a version of Behind Her Eyes is mentioned. One at the very end of the book, where it's very clear what we're talking about, because I think it's been revealed at that point that Rob is inside Adele and now Louise's body. But there's a mention of a version of Behind Her Eyes earlier in the book, and I clocked it because I was waiting for the title to kind of make sense. And it didn't really make sense to me there. It was like, I couldn't tell what was going on behind her eyes or something like that. And I was like, it's not giving me anything yet. So I think when you're all done, to be like, oh, behind her eyes, there's literally several people behind her eyes.
Yeah. I thought it was a clever title. I thought it was a good one.
Yes.
Okay. So this one is a good one. I want to talk about this one. From the start, Adele seems to know things that she shouldn't. How did you think that would be explained? Okay, so I had a lot of different ideas as we were going along. So at first, I was thinking, okay, I was super suspicious the second that Adele wanted to take a tour of Louise's apartment. My hackles were already up at that moment, thank goodness, because that helped me start to think about how I did get the sense that somehow she was getting to know this place, but I didn't exactly know how or why. And so the way that I was taking it was, I knew that she had, this little slush fund of money that she can use sometimes, this little allowance or whatever. And I knew that she had the credit card at one point, and I know that she had bought a bunch of high-end stuff off of the shopping network. And so I was thinking, like, maybe did she get little like bugs or little cameras or little something that when she was walking around, she was just like coolly putting stuff around in there, like listening devices or something, right? Then I had this crazy thought that it had to do with when Anthony went into David, and Anthony goes into the office unwilling to go to rehab, comes out of the office kind of stammering and weird acting, but willing to go to rehab. I thought in that second, is David somehow hypnotizing people? Like, does he have the power of hypnosis somehow? So I guess my brain was going a little supernatural there, or whatever you call hypnosis. I don't know if that's considered supernatural, but a little outside the box, right? My brain was willing to do that. I did try to bring in the psychiatry side of things, I guess, and think about like, could they have used hypnotism in some way? How that worked, I didn't know, but it seemed like maybe possibly Adele was being controlled, maybe mind controlled some way. But I thought all by David. It never occurred to me that Rob was inside of her or anything like that. And certainly the dream stuff never came into play for me. Not even when we got to that point, even that point that you figured out the dreaming, I still thought that was something about hypnosis, because I thought somehow David had figured out a way. And like the pinching, the be awake thing, I thought that was the cue to hypnotize you. Like that pinch your skin, I'm awake, look at my fingers, blah, blah, blah. I thought that was like the ritual to get you into this
right, like at the count of 3,
state.
right? You know, when I say chicken, you're going to jump around.
Yes, so I thought I had figured out the like magic phrases there. So that's the direction I was going.
Probably, and I imagine like most people, I think I thought she had to be bugging the place somehow, right? With little cameras, microphones, and she just had an elaborate setup in David's office, which would make sense. She had access to the apartment, because she does get the tour of Louise's apartment, but it turns out she had information.
And a tour of the office.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. She had access to the office.
Right.
But there was information as it turned out, I think if we look back, because I think this tickled my brain while I was reading it, it turned out she had information about what had gone on at Louise's apartment before she had gone to Louise's apartment and done the tour. And because she knew about the affair, which that was before she had done the tour of it. So how did she know? Right, before she met Louise. So how did she know? I mean, she must have been projecting at the bar before Louise even knew who David was. She must have been following him. It seems like...
Yeah, that's a good call. Because remember she was taking those walks?
Right. And when I finished the book and I thought back, I thought that was a really particular and peculiar sentence in the beginning of the book where she made a point to all of the details in and around the office and in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It says, like, I looked at it and she studied, like someone trying to memorize something for like a mnemonic or something. Mm-hmm. She like looks at addresses, she looks at buildings, she goes in, she studies it, she commits it to her memory, and she tells us that she's doing this very specific activity so that she can obviously follow kind of David around. And obviously she must be because they're so regimented in schedules, not just the phone calls, but she knows when he will be home and when he will not be home. She must just kind of follow him around and wherever he's going.
You know what? Here's the thing. I think for anybody who has ever watched or read the book, I assume it's from a book actually, but Sleeping with the Enemy, do you remember that movie?
Julia Roberts, maybe? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So part of this book kind of messed me up in terms of Julia Roberts in Sleeping with the Enemy does a bunch of stuff within the community. Like she learns how to swim. She goes to swim class and she hides that from her husband. She doesn't want him to know that she knows how to swim. But like she has like these friendships and these relationships in town or like away from where he is. That's what I thought she was doing. I guess I was so in on the abused wife, like storyline that like my brain went to these other shows and movies and books that I know how abused women acted. And she created like a whole little like support group of these women who knew her, who they didn't ever know her husband. And it was like clear that they weren't supposed to like ever mix. And so I think in my brain, when she was taking those tours and walking around the neighborhood and doing all that kind of stuff in my head, I think I was thinking she was creating this world where, again, she knew his timing of where he'd be at certain places. I wasn't taking it the way that I was supposed to if I was really trying to figure out the book in terms of like, what is she doing? What is she getting out of this? I honestly thought she was trying, like they just moved there and now she was trying to create like her safety zone away from him where she was going to meet people and have people who maybe knew her for breakfast or like the gym or whatever, those types of things, that she had a little life that was like safe and outside of David. So I was going down a wrong road entirely. I wasn't thinking she was doing this to memorize for astroplaning.
But I don't think it's a wrong road at that point. I think to me at the time, I think it struck me more as they seem like people who move a lot. I think there is like an intimation, if not an explicit statement, that they've moved several times. So this seemed seemed like something that would make sense of her just trying to get comfort by knowing her surroundings.
Well, part of the thing about abuse is that you have to create no safety nets. Like, you have to create them having to run back to the house to get the phone, or they have to be in certain places at certain times. And so when you do that, it's like cuts the whomever's being abused or whatever off from potential help. And so, like, a lot of times that happens in books and movies, and I'm sure in real life, where people get sort of isolated. And that's what I thought he was doing, was like isolating her, like no job, like nobody. You can't talk to anybody pretty much. So then she seemed like doing this kind of seemed like I'm going to carve out my own people.
Man, I gotta go back and read this because I feel like I'm coming off as someone who's like ignoring like abuse things, but there was something so suspicious about her. I don't know why it never clicked that it was a real abuse storyline. No.
That's so funny because I went right in for it and I was really bringing in all these other stories.
But now I'm like, well, why would you? You're a 47-year-old white guy. Like, why would you assume like, and I that's clearly not like what I'm trying to be. So now I feel like I missed the obvious on-ramping that like I was supposed to follow.
Well, I mean, if you read the Wikipedia thing that you read, I mean, it is about an abusive, that's how they want you to look at it initially.
Because it's like a mystery. Maybe I also just don't want to believe the obvious paths being taken to it.
And that's super fair. And you know what? I think that's something that you and I are going to find as we go through books.
Mm-hmm. If I didn't go into this thinking this was something that made an influencer drop her phone and run, maybe I would have been more amenable to what I was being told as true. But my instinct is not to believe the things I'm reading.
But I think that's going to happen. I think as we go through this series for the podcast, I honestly believe that like every book we read will be more and more suspicious of everybody to start with, because we're going to become trained readers to look for the storyline that isn't getting a lot of play and to try to ignore the one that they're trumpeting in your face, because they're doing that to distract you from the quieter storyline that is happening. And I think we're going to get better and better at that. And I feel like I'm out of practice of that and I need to get better back at this. So let me read the next question here.
I think this is a very important question. So I think it's a key question.
Adele talks about, quote, this life I fought so hard for. And she believes that, quote, I can never be happy until David's happy. In Adele's mind, everything she does is for David. And she keeps saying, quote, the course of true love never did run smooth. Do you think she really loves him? Let's all remember that Adele is Rob. So in Adele's mind means in Rob's mind. Let's all just remember that, okay? So this is Rob saying the course of true love never did run smooth. So this question is a little misleading because it says, do you think she really loves it? Well, we're talking about Rob. So I think that Rob does love David, but I think it's an obsessive love. I think it's an unhealthy love. I don't think he truly wants David to be happy because he does a lot of horrible things that is ruining David's life. So no, I don't think it's a pure love in any way. What do you think?
Well, everything I'm about to say, I have to preface with, obviously, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist with zero training.
You're just a podcaster and a lawyer.
And I don't do this kind of law. Whatever supernatural astroplaning law is, it's not what I do. Anyway, so with that disclaimer said, Rob Dell thinks Rob Dell loves David, but I agree with you. I think it is obsession. I think there's a bit of narcissism in there. It is entirely unhealthy.
Can I ask a specific scenario? And because I want your take on this. What the heck with being given the credit card and then immediately blowing it on a bunch of stupid stuff, knowing that all these boxes being delivered was going to set off David? What was the point of that? Why was Rob Dell happy to get that card and then happy to blow it up in 1 second?
I think Rob Dell used the card to their plot early on in getting the gym membership initially for Louise, which eventually would run its course. And then Rob Dell set that up to blow up, to set things in motion. But I think a lot of it was forcing a reaction from David. The purchases that eventually leads to him blowing up and taking the card away was something Rob Dale did in order to force interaction with David and also push him further away from her. Because once Louise enters the picture and Rob Dale decides on this grand plan, I think everything basically becomes about pushing David away from the husk of Adele towards Louise, because Rob Dale knows he's eventually going to astral project himself into Louise's body. They use the credit card initially to further their goals, and then once it's kind of run its course and the last part of the plan phase is about to start, blows it up by further pushing David away. And also in this quote unquote love that Rob Dale has for David, at some point, any interaction is better than no interaction from their point of view. So having David storm and rage and take the card and take the phone and all of that is better than David ignoring them. But also she needs to push David away from herself towards Louise. So I think it had kind of twofold parts to it.
I agree with you on the gym membership, but it seemed like that Home Shopping Network stuff happened like really quick after that. Like it seemed like it's not like she had the card for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
I mean, the whole book basically takes just over a month, right? I mean, it's just over a month.
I know. And I actually appreciated the Adam France trip in terms of helping me have a timeline. It really did help understand how long we'd been doing what we were doing. And you're right. As soon as they set up that Adam going to France part for a month, I thought this entire story is going to happen within this month then. Because somehow they're making this, like they're really telling us, they're making a very nice
They're setting a time frame
around
right.
it. Yeah. Where it's like, this is going to be a snapshot of this period of time. Now, I was actually surprised that the kiddo came back in sort of like the climax of what was going on in this story, because that was a great red herring in terms of like, both you and I thought this kid is in danger. And I mean, the kid is in danger, like longer term for sure. Even in the moment, like well before Rob hopped into Louise's body, I was concerned. I was concerned about having the, I guess it would be his stepmom, essentially, picking up at the daycare or whatever. Like even that made me feel like, oh shit, like somehow Adele is going to dress up like Lisa and show up at this or something and somehow snatch Adam. Because there was something about the fact that they didn't have children that made me feel like Adam was like vulnerable somehow, like either the fact that they didn't have him, so they must like maybe he would be in danger, or they didn't have him, so maybe they would steal him, something like that. Like I had a lot of worries about Adam, and I know you had a lot of anger towards Louise being a single dad yourself about how much danger you felt she put Adam in.
Once Adam came back and Louise kept on with the bullshit of entangling herself in these two people's lives, it made it really hard for me to root for Louise or like her in any way, shape, or form. By the end of the book, I didn't really care that she was dead. I only cared insofar as that Adam continues to be in danger and maybe is now going to die because of it. And all because of Louise's choices. As soon as he's back, you can justify whether it's legitimate or not, doing the things that she does while he's away. But once he's back, that's your priority. Mm-hmm. And she kept on with her selfish nonsense, her indulgent nonsense, and put him in harm's danger every fucking day and night. It really turned me off. It really turned me off. It really put me off of the character to the point where...
It was hard to have sympathy for Louise after that.
I had no sympathy for Louise. Everything that happened at the end, I was like, this is what you get. You sacrificed your child and yourself,
your job and your body and your heart.
You have no better job. You have no more important job than being the parent of that little boy who you told us is your world. And look where you are. You're crouched in a corner, astral projecting yourself into some woman that you don't fucking know's body because because why? Because you think you've appointed yourself, the morality police or I need to get rid of my guilt police, or because you are making assumptions and at that point she knows David didn't even do anything and she still chooses Adele over her child. Nah, dog. Nah. We haven't seen the show yet, but whoever they need to get to play Adele and David Martin better be the two most attractive fucking people ever placed on this earth to justify the choices that the people in this book make.
You're right. I agree with you. They need to be physically attractive because I think that that's a huge element of this. But also, they need to have like charisma in a way that somehow they suck people in, because that's really key. I'm going to skip over these next two questions because I want to talk about them at the end with this last question. But I do want to ask you about this. Louise takes matters into her own hands and tells authorities about Adele's suspicions that David has caused Rob's death. But after she meets Marianne, she figures out that Adele has been lying to her about many things. At that moment, what did you think would happen next? Now, can you remember that moment? Can you remember being at the point where we're talking to Marianne and we're finding out about this cat, we're finding out about this high heel insanity?
You guys, the cat part really, I had to put the book down. I put the book down. I wrote to you, I was like, this book, period, I am not happy.
Yeah, and as soon as I got there, which was only like half an hour later, I was like, oh shit, this is the part you probably had to put down. What did you think of this moment? For me, I really thought that she was really going to lose David over this entire thing, which, here's the deal. I was not rooting for her and David to be together.
No, why would you? They're broken people. They should not. David shouldn't be with anyone. David will be best in prison.
Oh, no. Why do you think David should go to prison?
Because it's the only way he's free from Rob Dell.
Oh, that's not a reason to go to prison.
There's nowhere you can hide when you can actually project yourself around the world.
Rob could just project into another prisoner in the prison.
I guess that's true.
There's no getting away if that's the reasoning.
Don't let Rob Dell get a tour of the cells.
I was just going to say, you got to fly somewhere that Rob Dell's never seen and could never imagine what looks like. That would be the key. But okay, go back to that moment though. Go back. I know you don't want to talk about the cat thing. You don't have to. But at that moment, what did you think was going to happen? She writes this letter to the authorities. I'm thinking the authorities are going to show up to talk to David about Rob's death because she sent the letter. So that's what I'm thinking would happen next.
She had already dropped the letter in the post to the police, right? And then she tells David what she did. Mm-hmm. She does that after the conversation with Marianne though, right? Because that's from that conversation then that prompts him to go get on the train.
I think she sends the letter. Then when she talks to Marianne, she realizes that this has all probably been a big fat lie.
And then she leaves him a voicemail at that point saying, and then they meet and then he goes right straight away to the police, but it's like a trip. So, and then she shouldn't do anything. She's already involved the police. David's already on the way to tell his side of the story.
Did you ever think
the choice that she shouldn't do is go talk to Adele? Stop talking to this woman. Right. You are no one. This woman has out-chessed you in every way, shape, or form, and you know that now.
Okay, but hold on. Take a beat for a second. Take one beat. I don't think that you and I are putting enough into the David-Louise relationship. Because, for God's sake, they get married at the end. We're not even acting like they're a real relationship. We're acting like they just hook up and that's it. But somehow, they're trying to tell us, and it is just telling us, because I don't feel it. So they're just telling us this is a viable, actual relationship.
But I never got it like shake that. By the shoulders any friend who told you I'm going to go marry this guy, given all of this history?
Yes. It's been 6 weeks. We just talked about that.
Right.
It's only been 6 weeks. Of course I would shake my friend and be like...
You owe them nothing, Louise.
And you have spent the last 6 weeks sleeping with a guy you think is beating and or controlling another woman.
Right.
What?
Right. The one choice she should not do, of course, is the one that she does. And she goes and continues to try and match wits with Adele. This is my problem. Louise can't realize that she's been bested. Even when she realizes she's been bested, she still thinks, what? This woman has outmaneuvered her in every way. She knew about the second door. You know she was lying about that. You know she did everything that you thought David did. And yet you still think you're gonna, go convince her to see the error of her ways? Come on, Louise. You're not that charismatic. Anyone can play you. It's, you know what I mean? Like, you're, by all accounts, including your own, you're not David. You're not Adele. You're you. What do you think you're going to do? Now, I get bruised egos and all of that, but you have a little boy at home. You have a life you have to go put back together again because you have lost your job. You still haven't told your ex about that and needing more money from him now, right? That she says that she's going to have to get more money from him and she doesn't want to confront all that. Like, you have your life that you need to start putting back together again. You have already done it. You've told the police. You've told David. You know the truth. You're done. Go take care of your kid and disentangle yourself. Listen to Sophie, who, again, I get why you don't want to take advice from her because of how she lives her life, but she's giving solid advice here and has given solid advice here the entire book, as it turns out.
I know. I totally felt like she was speaking directly to the audience. Anytime Sophie talked, it was like she was telling the audience, like, look, this is from the author to you about what this person should really do and what I really think, but you're going to see her do a bunch of other shit. Hey, let's talk about this. We're going to get into the dreaming portion now, okay? So the last 3 or 4 questions is going to be all about the streaming stuff. So let's get into it, okay? Now, I know you are already familiar with the concept of astroplaning, right? I didn't really know this idea. I mean, I think I've seen something like it in sci-fi stuff, but almost more like hologrammy in my brain. I wasn't really exactly taking it as dreaming. So the question is, Adele teaches Louise about lucid dreaming, a real phenomenon, but then takes it a step further beyond the second door. Have you ever had a lucid dream? Now, you and I had this conversation while we were reading the book, and both of us, shockingly, have gone through having really bad nightmares as kids. And both of us, through, I don't know what, maybe we saw something on Oprah. I don't know how both of us in our own individual lives figured this one out. But we both figured out that we could control things that happened in our dreams. We could actually walk away from this scary thing or whatever and get away from it and stop having those bad dreams. I'm cool with the lucid dreaming portion. How do you feel about it?
Absolutely. And I think it is a useful tool. If any, I think it's, I learned how to do it. I had 2 really bad nightmares that would recur. I didn't know there was a term. I wouldn't know the term lucid dreaming for years after this. I was a teenager when I finally figured out, like, I could intercede and stop my dream and change how it was playing out. And literally, like, back it up and redo it and change how it played out so that I stopped having those dreams. And then I stopped having those dreams. And again, I don't have a problem with the astral projection as the next step, as a way of explaining the astral projection is. And you can see where one launches off of the other, right? When you master the first door, the lucid dreaming door, and then you get good at that, and then you can go into the astral projection part of it. I don't really have a problem with that. For me, it was the choices being made at the end of the story of trying this thing of entering another body when you hadn't done it before in such a high stakes motivation.
You're specifically talking about Louise choosing
Louise,
to
yes, at the end. The choice at the end to one actually project there instead of calling the fire department. You're watching a fire burn, but you're going to go do something. This is, again, another Louise choice, which I don't want to get into. You asked about lucid dreaming and astral projection. I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with it. And I think it's actually a nice twist. I think the astral projection was a nice twist.
You do? Then I think that you've been convinced throughout this podcast, because I think at the beginning you were like, that's bullshit.
No. The astral projection I think is fine. It's the choices at the end that I don't like. It comes down to Louise making choices and all of the plans hinging on two very unlikely things happening that I don't like at the end. Because I think the astral projection works great of answering the question of, how does Adele know what's going on? How can Louise use this to combat Adele once she understands what Adele has been doing, as giving kind of background to Rob and Adele's by reading through the dream book more, which though I think the dream book actually stops at the astral projection parts, the second door parts. Well, for me, it was the last step of the body swapping. For me, it relies on Louise making this choice to leave her body and enter another body, which Rob Dell is relying on, and the timing of it so that she can then enter Louise's body. It required so much unlikely precision and choice making that 9 out of 10 people would never have done what Louise did and the choices she made. So Rob Dell's plan should have been dead on arrival because it relies on irrational choices by Louise for it to work. What did you think of the lucid dreaming? What did you think of the projection as a next step? What did you think of the ultimate choices made by Louise to make the ending work?
Okay, so I'm going to actually read the next question. It says, the second door changes everything for Adele and Louise, and it introduces a supernatural element to the psychological thriller. How did you feel about the element of the second door? I didn't really know what to think about the second door, to be honest, especially when it was first introduced. I wasn't sure. It definitely seemed like something sinister because of the way that Adele said that they didn't know anything about it, but you definitely got the vibe that they 100% knew about it. Then I was like, so what is the second door? So I was highly suspicious of the second door, but I didn't know if it like shot you to hell or if it like, you know, somehow trapped you like in like a paralytic state or something. Like I didn't know what the second door was going to do. But at the first idea of bringing it forward, it felt sinister and never felt like anything good was going to come of the second door. As we've all learned, you don't go to the second location.
You should never go to the second location or go through the second door.
Never. And I agree with you. Everything you're saying about, okay, knowing you as a single parent, knowing a lot of other single moms. I think Louise would be a little more protective of Adam, a lot more protective, really, and not put herself into so much danger. Part of me kind of wishes that they just left Adam in France until like all of it was over, because him coming back in the scene right when he did, I mean, maybe it does provide more stakes, I suppose, because, I mean, it definitely made us feel like he could be in danger. Something could happen to him. But at the same time, like you said, it created this whole situation where Louise it didn't make sense anymore that she was getting so involved in David and what Adele was doing right then. Except for that, we have to go with this idea that she was like in a huge relationship with David, which it just didn't feel that way.
But let's talk about the last choice, though, then, Caroline. Because at that point, when she's on the thing and she sees the fire burning and she leaves, even when she leaves her body to see where Adele is, and she finds her in the bed upstairs, this is a woman that you now know have done all of these things. Maybe and in fact also did kill her parents. Maybe has done even more crimes that you don't know about, in addition to making you look like a fool and using you.
And you know the Marianne story, and you know the cat story.
You know all of those things, and yet
you're still going to get involved.
You're still going to get involved? It's hard not to say, well, you deserve what you get.
I mean, she literally, you guys, here's the thing that they don't explicitly say, but like we have to like absorb. The real Adele died back when she was like 18. Let's put that in our brains. And the real Louise dies right here at the end of this book. Just in case, somehow you read it and then you were like, I don't understand. Rob went into Adele's body back when they were 18 years old. Right. And Rob rode that out as being David's spouse as Adele for this whole time until Louise. And then when Louise and Adele do their hovering over each other, then quickly Rob shoots over into Louise's body, essentially killing Louise. So,
well, then shoots her up, right? I mean, It shoots her up, the heroin overdoses
and then
her and kills her. Like,
the soul that's inside Adele's body.
Kills Adele's body, which kills Louise's soul inside of it. Yes.
I mean, I know at the beginning I said this wasn't a murder mystery because the deaths, we knew as the deaths were happening, really, for the most part, with the exception, of course, Rob's was the mystery, I suppose, but they never really made that feel like a mystery. Like, it wasn't like a whodunit in that stitch. It was like, it either had to have been Adele or David. There was really never a question on that.
That's why when we were reading, I was like, yeah, this is less, reframe your mind. It's less murder mystery whodunit and more psychological thriller. Oh, that's some fucked up shit, kind of. And I think that holds true really at the end, through the end. I mean, this is reverse fatal attraction with a twist, with body swapping or soul swapping.
The ending of Behind Her Eyes contains a huge twist. When you think back through the book, starting with the prologue, what clues did the author provide about what is really going on? I mean, to be fair, she introduced the dream book early on. We had the knowledge of that dream book, and we knew it was around, and we knew the concept of all these night terrors that was laid out to us pretty early on.
The going through taking the note of learning where things were and locking them into her memory and how it all maps out. That's a hint. The increasing use of drug use to free your mind in the flashback stories, though I think Rob at that point is not planning on doing anything. He hasn't unlocked the second door at that point in the story, and he hasn't met David. He's actually pretty negative to David. Rob is like Anthony in the present. They're obsessive addicts. So Rob is a heroin addict who has obsessive tendencies, who is obsessed with Adele. As soon as David gets out of the car at the weekend when he comes home from university and Rob is now staying at the house, Rob says David was a revelation. So right there, instantly sours on Adele. She's always around. She's hanging out. She's cock blocking me essentially from David, and becomes obsessed with David. In the same way in the beginning and in the present, Anthony is obsessed with David and go to the point of going to his house until he sees Adele, and then he immediately shifts his obsessive allegiance from David to Adele then at that point. So Rob and Anthony are very parallel characters in the past and in the present. You're seeing the similarity there, so that's a clue. The clue that we didn't get is what I just said, where he says David was a revelation when he got out, and immediately I wanted to be with him. I wanted to love him in a way Adele, in her silly girlness, could never love him. That only comes out at the very end of the book after it's all done. That was a clue, some kind of breadcrumb that we desperately needed. Rob is just anti-David, and he's never even met David in the flashbacks. The one time where they do meet each other, they have kind of the silly chef cooking thing, and David kind of awkwardly plays along and whatever. But otherwise, they have no interaction with each other, and the interaction seems to be pretty negative from Rob's experience talking about it. There's no line in passing of, man, I see where Adele, I see at least why Adele was so much about David. He is a cute, like, there's nothing in the book or anything that would indicate it in any way, shape, or form. And you can't use the blowjob for weed as an example, because addicts are going to give a blowjob for weed, even if they are straight, right? I mean, I think we've all seen that trope anyway, whether it's true in real life. We've seen that in TV and movies and books. Drug addicts will do a lot of things to get drugs, right? That's something that we're taught in pop culture. I don't know if it's true, but at least when you read it in the story, you're like, I didn't take that as an indication of sexuality.
No, I took it as desperation for drugs, purely.
Right. The long way of saying, yes, there were some breadcrumbs, but there were a couple crucial ones that I think could have been laid in that would have made the story go down easier for me at the end.
I'm just and there were a couple of parts that I'm curious when we get to watch the movie, which I'm super glad that there's like a 6-episode movie on Netflix that we're going to watch on this, because I'm really curious about like stuff like that when Anthony's in the office with David and he comes out so out of it. And like weird acting, like There's something about that just really bothers me. Like, really bothered me about what went on in that office.
I hear you on that, but then it's kind of how Anthony became obsessed with Adele, though.
Yeah, but there wasn't anything about him being obsessed with David in that moment. That wasn't what that scene was about.
But I think looking back, I think that's what it was, though.
Why would he come out like stammering?
Because he was so taken by him. He was a revelation. This is what I'm saying, that these two characters.
Anthony never said David's a revelation.
Right,
Anthony
but he had the same reaction, though. Look back.
Yes, yeah.
Apply that filter to how Anthony's acting, and now all of a sudden he's willing to do rehab and do these things. Yeah. It's because just that little time one-on-one with David, and David knows that he's got this power a little bit, right? He tells Anthony's parents, let me talk to him, let me spend some time with him. And he comes out and he's so like, oh, whatever David Martin says I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's where I was going with like the hypnotism part.
I think the charisma, I think you're supposed to understand the charisma is just that much. That Rob flips on Adele immediately. That Anthony falls in line immediately. And then switches to Adele immediately when he sees her and sees the bruise and puts it all together. And that he starts popping up everywhere.
Through the whole, and it was like breadcrumbs, I suppose, to talk about the idea of an obsessive person moving obsessions from one person to the next and the next. I mean, if you look back, I mean, that was some major foreshadowing. The idea of moving from person to person, literally transitioning into different people's bodies.
That's a great call.
I mean, there's that, right? But then just the obsessive nature of it, that like everybody you're watching, whether it's David being obsessed with Louise or whether it's Louise even being obsessed with Adele, all the different obsessiveness that we have with other people, that it like forces these people to make decisions in a way that you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you wouldn't make that decision as a regular person, but then you have to add in the obsessive factor.
That Louise can't quit these two, even when she knows it's literally physically bad for her health and well-being and safety and her son. She still can't quit them. That's the power. And I wouldn't say Louise is necessarily obsessed, but she's certainly so drawn into their charisma.
I think she's obsessed.
That she can't pull herself away.
She marries the dude.
Well, she does marry the dude. So,
that's obsessed, dude.
Right. But okay. So she's not painted as an obsessive character, though, I guess with the smoking, and she drinks quite a bit also. So maybe she does have obsessive tendencies.
Or at least
there's a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of addictive personalities in this story.
Yeah, there is.
So even Louise, who is supposed to be our hero, falls prey to the pull of these two. Ultimately, I think this is actually a great psychological thriller of codependent, unhealthy, obsessive relationships that really could have stood on its own and really knocked your socks off without having had to take the supernatural aspect of it, which works in a way.
What would have been the twist if they didn't? If Rob hadn't been...
She could have killed herself. She could have done like a Mary Alice thing from Desperate Housewives and like never actually left. She could have gone into someone else's body. She could have gone into the...
You can't go into any bodies if you're saying that element is stupid.
Well, okay, so maybe...
Take that out. What's the story?
Maybe she has a twin sister or something like that. I don't...
And you wouldn't be more irritated with that?
But if they had laid it that they were separated at birth, or maybe she does just kill herself. Maybe the twist is she kills herself so David actually could be free. Maybe she sacrifices herself to free him, because that's actually what I thought she was going to kill herself for a lot of the book and then pin it on Louise as a murderer to quote unquote set David free. I thought she was going to die for a large part of the book.
Yeah.
Adele.
Yeah. Because she kept talking about a plan and all that, and it was like, what's the plan?
And she even says explicitly at one point towards the end, she's like, and soon I'll be dead. Like, but even before that, like, I thought she was setting herself up to die.
Yeah.
So that Louise would take the fall for it, so that David would be then free, and everything that happened in the past. Like, that she was literally going to sacrifice herself and Louise, in order to free David. Something like that.
That makes sense. You could have framed her for the murder.
I think you could have gotten a lot of different ways where you could have gotten psychological thriller bad relationship payoff without this twist.
I'm going to say that I liked the twist. I think that is something that I definitely did not see coming at all. Not at all. When I got to that last chapter and it was titled Rob, I was like, what? And like my entire last couple minutes of reading the book, my eyes were popping out of their head. And I'm sorry, if you had given me a, vengeful wife frames new lover, I would be like, okay. But I wouldn't have gone, oh my God. So, I mean, I'll give the author credit. She found a device, a little narrative device here that created a completely wild ending that I didn't see coming.
Wild
and here's
ending,
the deal.
for sure.
They could have left it that Louise and Adele swapped, and they could have left it at that. But when they added the twist that really Rob had been in Adele's body the whole freaking story, that reveal, I'm sorry, that blows my brain.
Blows your brain, but is it earned? This is the twin sister we never knew about.
Earned. No, it's not, because you show Rob at the beginning, you show the dream book. They told you about the second door. They told you everything you needed to know. We just didn't open our minds up big enough to allow that this was a possibility. So I don't think it was unearned. It was all in front of us.
Yeah. I
just never thought in a million years, because they grounded the rest of the story in such reality for me, that I was like, shit, like this feels like really outside the box thinking.
I was fine with the astral projection stuff, and that all seemed like a logical thing. So I guess the body swapping, you can't really say, well, that's one step too far. Not really. So that's fair. I think I'm just having a trouble with the choices made, for the timing of the choices made for the ending to work is my stumbling block. And so I think I'm lashing out at different parts to it, but it's really ultimately just the character decisions don't make sense to me. But maybe because we didn't see Louise behave in any other way other than irrationally, maybe it did make sense. She made poor decisions about her safety and Adam's safety and her world the entire book. It angers me, but maybe it actually does fit with the character. And I just don't like the character, as it turns out.
I think it's super fair for us to think that Louise is a selfish character, is somebody who, I mean, she definitely makes bad decisions. I mean, I think that's super clear. But I also don't think that they made her be like such a loser or such a person that you couldn't relate to. Like, I think you could see her life.
Aspects
like,
of her, for sure.
I could see Adam's room in my mind.
Yeah.
I could see their cozy little apartment. Like, I could see her, what she looked like in my mind, and which I'll be very interested actually about how they cast this in terms of if the characters are going to match how I've made them look in my brain. Because I'm going to let you know right now, David in my brain is some weird mix of, the Irish guy, maybe Scottish, I'm sorry, Scottish probably, who is like in love with the super tall lady, Brianna, right, in Game of Thrones. Do you know him? The redheaded Scottish guy?
Yeah. Oh, yes. He does Scott's Lawn commercials now. You think David's that guy?
No, the Scottish portion, right? Him with a way more classically attractive version of a leading man. That's how I'm thinking of him. I'm giving him the charisma and the energy and the enthusiasm of the Game of Thrones character, who was just full of it, like full of life. But putting him in a more classic, but still very Scottish looking. So I would want red hair or something like that. Like, I would want a Scottish look about him. Louise is kind of dumpy but blonde in my brain. But kind of a little bit they went over the top to continuously say that she needed to lose some weight. So whatever, 20 pounds or something. And maybe sort of all-American girl kind of ish in my brain. And then we have Adele, Rob Dell, if you will, who I think should look like how they said, Angelina Jolie-ish. So I'm curious about how these three are going to be cast, if they're going to follow anything of from what the descriptions were in the book. I'm not just saying blonde. I remember Adele says Louise is blonde, which again, thinking the way you did of oh shit, now I got to be a blonde. Oh man, that's such a mindfuck to think about. That's the way Rob Dell was thinking about Louise when describing Louise. Like, it was really like, that's my future look, you know?
Yeah, like it's like going to like select your steak, except for you're going to live inside of the steak.
That's so gross. So gross. Well, I thought this was a pretty good book, dude. I was for it. I would recommend it to other people. I would recommend it with other people with the caveat that I would say there is a supernatural element to it. But I would put that out there to the person, because
I think you would be doing a disservice if not. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if they can't even stand that, then I think that they're going to feel angry and thrown. But again, I think it's because it is so grounded. I could see Louise's apartment. I could see David and Adele's life. I could see the institution that she was at with Rob. Like, I could picture all these places. So then to add this kind of fantasy, supernatural dream element was like, oh God, that's so outside of like what I consider like reality, you know, that I was like, oh, dang.
So I think I'm mixed on the book. I like the grounded relationship setups and those aspects. I like the duplicity of Adele, and I like the obsessive nature. I like all of that. I don't mind the supernatural stuff. Again, ultimately, the choices leave a bad taste in my mouth because it just makes me not like Louise's character, which you have to rely on her choices in order to get to the ending that the book has. So I think that I struggle with that. I think this is going to be an instance where abnormally I like the book more than the TV series or the movie. I think this may be a case where if the TV show is even remotely well done, I think I may like the TV show spread out over 6 episodes more than the book.
I'm going to be very interested to see what I think. I mean, there could be a real cheese factor with the having to swap souls into bodies. Like, I don't know what that visual effects are going to look like or how they're going to depict that. Like, that alone could make or break whether it's a super cheesy adaptation or not. I don't know what I expect it to look like when those things happen or when they're in the dream state or whatever. How they depict the soul flying to another body is kind of going to matter to me. If it's going to look like Casper the Ghost or what is it going to be like? Yeah, like I'm curious. So I'm really looking forward to watching the show, which is very exciting. And I was drawn in. I mean, as soon as I got these characters down, which only took maybe like 20 pages or something. As soon as I started to solidify them in my head, I mean, I read this all in one day after that. This is definitely the type of book that I didn't want to put down. I wanted to know what the heck was going to happen. And that, for me, that's all a good book needs to be.
I read this in 2 sittings, like the first 50 and then the rest of the book. So I guess that's an indication of it definitely had me engrossed to see how it would go. But I definitely said when the final page like turned and then I was into like the acknowledgments, I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's going to sit with me for a while, I think.
Okay, well, I like that. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you for listening to Book Club Meets Movie Night. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, if you could, please leave us a 5-star review. As a new podcast especially, it really helps in people finding the podcast. It helps in promotion of the show. The podcast, Apple especially, will be more inclined to promote it on their website and in their app if people are liking it and giving it 5-star reviews. And if you leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read it on the air, like this wonderful comment we got from Nage21. Thursday Murder Club, 5 stars. I love the new podcast. Became a fan of the Gilded Age podcast and followed you over to this one. I'm also a big fan. I'm a big thriller fan and love discussing the nuance of books. I can't wait for the movie portion of this series. I love the book and have read the entire series. You will not be disappointed. Nage21, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for interacting with us. And guys, please, reach out. We're going to be setting up a Facebook page for the podcast. You can get us on Instagram. You can reach out to us and DM us. You can leave us comments on Spotify where you can actually interact with us. You can leave us reviews on Apple. We'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas about how to do the podcast format and changes to make, we want to hear from you too, but definitely want to hear from you on this book and what you thought. Did you drop your phone? Did you drop your book and run screaming? Did you learn how to lucid dream? How are you inspired? We definitely want to hear.
Are you planning on astroplaning in the future?
Are you inside of me right now?
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.